Good morning. And thank all of you for joining us for this third State of the City over the tenure I've served as mayor. My fellow residents, I am here to report that Charlotte is coming back and we are getting stronger every day. The hard winter of recession has ruined many lives and made the work of our city council difficult. When I took the office of mayor in December 2009, unemployment was near a historical high. Our housing market was in the tank, and many people here and elsewhere wondered whether Charlotte had seen its best days. Since that time, our labor force has grown 11.9%. We have 14.4% more people employed and 11.3% fewer people unemployed. Housing prices are up 7% this time over last year, and after hosting our largest event in our city's history and showing the world what we've done and what we're capable of doing, we have set the course for a bright future ahead. As your mayor, I serve the most diverse citizenry in our history. I represent Republicans, independents, and Democrats, the young and the old, Hispanics and Asians and blacks and whites, the rich, the poor, the middle class, gay and straight citizens, people from every walk of life. In my charge, and the charge of our Charlotte City Council, is to ensure that every man, woman, and child in our city limits has a chance to succeed, to fulfill the talents, what their talents and what their ambitions can lead them to accomplish. I'm convinced that there is no city in America in which we can make this true than Charlotte. And every day we're getting closer. Today is the fourth day of Black History Month, in a year in which we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington and the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. Today, we're reminded of the efforts of so many leaders in our city's history and in the history of our country who endured the challenges and vestiges of slavery, who sat down in lunch counters and boycotted buses to create fairness and equality. By doing what they did as a matter of history, it wasn't just about morality and social consequence. Those folks knew that equal opportunity and economic empowerment were both morally right, but also good economics. They knew that poverty, discrimination, and ignorance restrict growth, and that when you cut people off, it is not just those who are cut off who are hurt. We're all hurt. Black History Month is a time to remember how far we've come together and to reflect on how far we still have to go. In a sense, those folks held up the mirror to our society. And if we were to hold the mirror up to our city today, we would see that for all of our strengths, all of our growth, all of our potential, we still lack a galvanizing vision of our city's future. History, perception, and even prejudice could limit our ability to compete for jobs and talented people in the 21st century. We live together. Our futures are all connected. And now it is time for Charlotte to move forward together. As much as we have achieved, we will do even better when all of our citizens are empowered and vested with a real chance to compete and succeed. We have a right to be proud of our central business district. where more than $1 billion of investment has gone into making it the envy of cities all around the world. We have a right to be proud of our suburban areas like Ballantyne, which is one of the most prosperous parts of our community. A generation ago, Ballantyne did not even exist. But along with private sector investment, we literally dug pipes in the woods to create a new community, new prosperity. I share these two examples to prove the point that targeted investment can generate economic return on investment for our community. In over nearly 8 years, in this very room, the Charlotte City Council has struggled with the difficult choices of investing versus restraint. In 2006, the local economy was raging. Housing prices were skyrocketing and our unemployment rate was much lower. Even so, the signs of decay were present. Our roads were crumbling. Our crime rate was spiking. And despite the strong economy, the argument then was, wait, now is not the time. The wait crowd told us that investing in our community would hurt more than help. And yet that year, 7 members of the city council put politics aside and took action to improve public safety, to build new roads, to better maintain old roads, to invest in housing the poor. Together, the Charlotte City Council put 70 new police officers on the streets. We secured the largest transportation bonds in our city's history. And we continued the work of affordable housing. So what have been the results? We kept our AAA bond rating at a time when many cities and even the U.S. government have lost theirs. We experienced our lowest crime rate in our city's history. We took advantage of the lowest interest rates and the lowest construction prices in a generation to build new roads and to make new improvements, more than we ever have. And because we invested, then we've gone without a city property tax increase for nearly 7 years. I would say that's a pretty good report card. But we also see the difference in what a single decision can mean to real people. People like Carl Frank Caldwell. Carl, will you stand up? I met Carl at Moore Place just a few weeks ago. Moore Place is a first-of-its-kind facility for the homeless and is supported in part by the city's Housing Trust Fund. If you meet Carl, who actually shares my responsibilities as mayor because he's called the mayor of Moore Place, you cannot help but feel his infectious spirit. For much of his life, Carl was a teacher, just like my grandparents. And yet he fell on hard times. Carl lost nearly everything: his work, his home, his relationships with his family. He lived on Charlotte streets for about 3 years, until now. Because the city invested in Moore Place, Carl has more than a roof over his head. He has found his dignity again. He's reconnecting with his family. He's reconnecting with his former students, and he's finding that sense of pride in himself. Anyone who doubts the power of the Charlotte City Council to transform lives, take a look at Carl. Thank you, Carl. Since 2006, we've proven we can be more than a one-trick pony. We've exercised fiscal restraint in difficult times. And working together, our Charlotte City Council has taken dramatic steps to avoid raising taxes in this environment. We've laid off some city workers. We've frozen salaries and positions. We've right-sized the public safety pay plan. We've outsourced recycling. We've shifted capital dollars to our operating budget. We've even reduced the property tax rate following the recent revaluation. We have lived within our means, not for the few, but for the interest of all of the people we serve. Along the way, we've helped to keep our library system in business. We've helped to keep effective educators in our schools. We've purchased Eastland Mall. We've partnered to develop 2 funds that will seed innovation and entrepreneurship. We earned funding to extend light rail to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte and to return streetcars to Charlotte for the first time in 50 years. We broke ground on an intermodal facility at our airport. We lifted our children by increasing participation in the Mayor's Youth Employment Program from 48 kids in 2006 to 3,200 this past summer with the support of companies like Bank of America, which awarded $100,000 to help us enrich the lives of our children and lift their ambitions. We did all of this and more without raising taxes. Still, if we were to hold up the mirror to our community and speak honestly about our challenges, what would we see? We would see that the Charlotte region is the fastest growing region in the United States. And if we want to grow our population and tax base within our city's limits, we will need new tools to do so. Simply put, how we got here is not how we're going to get there. First, growth by annexation is effectively over. For years, Charlotte went without property tax increases because we could grow population and tax base simply by annexing new land. The state has restricted our ability to annex, and even if it hadn't, we've nearly run out of room to grow anyway. The only way for us to grow our city and to grow our tax base and to grow our population is by reinventing existing parts of Charlotte, to grow that new revenue, to keep our long-term property tax rates as low as possible. If we do not, future city councils will struggle to pay the bills without frequent tax hikes. Second, we have a growing disconnect in Charlotte between the haves and the have-nots, between our vibrant areas and those in decline. This is not just a Charlotte problem, this is a national problem. And still, history, perception, demographic changes, and even prejudice can no longer serve as excuses for growing poverty and crime and low educational attainment and poor infrastructure in some parts of Charlotte. History, perception, demographics, and prejudice allow us to celebrate West End's markers or the underpass lights or rubber-tired trolleys as great accomplishments, while millions of dollars are poured into new housing stock and new employment and new infrastructure into our brighter corners. No more. Third, the role of federal and state help is changing. Our federal government, overrun with debt and indecision, will play a less helpful role on issues such as housing and infrastructure in the future. In Raleigh, I extend the same outstretched hand that has enabled us to accelerate the completion of I-485 and its southern widening, to protect investments in high-speed rail funds, and to reinvent our workforce development system. To the extent that our leaders in Raleigh desire to help us achieve our objectives as a local community, we can be counted on as partners. However, we reject help inconsistent with local priorities and any effort to perpetuate the so-called culture of intimidation. In fact, in the back rooms of Raleigh, according to rumor and innuendo, a few news articles, there appears to be a serious conversation about removing city control over Charlotte Douglas International Airport, eliminating revenues we count on to pay for police and firefighters, and even cutting off transit funds. That's wrong. Fourth, our old formula will not work. We have gone a long way by investing in areas where we're strong and underinvesting in areas where we're weak. In an earlier generation, we put together multiple dedicated revenue sources to build museums and arenas and hotels. We banded together to make those investments because they lifted the whole. They were good investments. But for Charlotte to continue its upward trajectory, we must not only be a good place to visit, we must work to be an even better place to live. So how do we move forward? It's not rocket science. For more than a year, the Charlotte City Council, like Congress, has been stuck in budget deliberations. Last spring, after a record number of budget retreats, the City Council voted down our capital budget. Even a majority of the Budget Committee voted against it. We edged toward our own fiscal crisis and in the end left the matter unresolved. We held additional retreats this fall at the request of the Council. In the end, they said they wanted to wait. Soon, we will begin budget deliberations again. And while we're going back and forth, our bond rating agencies are increasingly skeptical that we'll figure it out. As our annexation power runs out and the revenue growth that comes along with it, we will find ourselves losing population and economic growth if we cannot transform our economically challenged areas. I remain convinced, as part of this strategy, that transit is a game changer for Charlotte. Transit is a game changer for Charlotte. Along South Boulevard, light rail has resulted in $1.4 billion in private investment. The extension of that line northward is also expected to generate significant development. But, holding the mirror up, the reality is the sales tax is tapped out. There is no new money. And for the next 20 years, this city, this region could literally go without a new project. Not a commuter line going up into Davidson, not streetcars going east and west in our city or to the airport. Financially, our transit plan is dead. Are we done? Our efforts to jumpstart the streetcar do not flow from recklessness. They arise out of the recognition that it could be 20 years before we see projects get built. The recognition that as we've run out of places to annex, we must reinvent our city. And that if we want new population to come into our city, we've got to prepare for it. Without projects in the ground, we will experience the same sucking sound of sprawl that has driven investment in population away from cities all across the South. That's not who we are. That's not who we should be. So we recognize the need to work with our state and with our regional partners to solve this problem and to revive our system. That's in part why, as Metropolitan Transit Commission Chair, I have appointed Republican Mayor of Huntersville, Jill Swain, and Democratic City Council Member and Transportation Chair, David Howard, to co-chair a task force to look at our system and develop ideas for new dedicated funding streams for transit. Eventually, we will need Raleigh's help, and I am hopeful that Raleigh and our new governor will respond. While this task force is working, the Charlotte City Council is also working. We have not taken the streetcar out of the 2030 transit plan. Let me say that again. We have not taken it out of the 2030 transit plan. We have simply tried to add resources to move the project along in a time when the sales tax is tapped out. Under discussion today is a 2.5-mile portion of streetcar waiting to be built and communities in East and West Charlotte that are hungry for economic regeneration. I appreciate Governor McCrory's longstanding position against it. Since last summer, many business leaders and even city council members have parroted his sentiments. I have shown charts and graphs and empirical evidence of the transformational power of this project, the single biggest job creator in the entire $926 million package. But with all due respect, the opposition, I believe, isn't just about the economic impact. It's not so much what it is, maybe it's where it is. In every city across America that has done a modern streetcar, there has been a substantial positive economic return. So it can't be that. We must decide as a community, are we one city or are we two cities? And I believe deeply in the idea that Charlotte is one place. One place. Now, with all due respect, I also don't think that this idea that property taxes used for transit has been eliminated over the last 12 or 13 years. Since 1998, we have used property taxes for transit. Last year, we increased the use of property taxes to make room for the Blue Line extension. In future years, the Red Line commuter rail project would also use property taxes. There hasn't been an iota of opposition to the use of taxpayer property taxes for those projects. And so I'm left to try to figure out why. In our own way, all of us in this community have perhaps fallen victim to low expectations of our east and west corridors. We look at our neighbors in East and West Charlotte. We cannot bring ourselves to believe that jobs can be created in those corridors, that new housing stock can be built there, or that businesses large and small will ever want to go. If Charlotte were a business, maybe Charlotte would have closed those business lines and tried to sell them a long time ago. But that's the difference between a private enterprise and a city. We don't have that option. We either make our city better or we let it get worse. And I'm asking all of our Charlotte citizens to join me in working to make our city better. Let me be clear. This streetcar and resolving this capital budget is more important than baseball. It's more important than football. It is important to put this city on the path of living together with more opportunity, more economic vibrancy, more quality neighborhoods, more infill development, better schools, more people who want to live here, and more businesses who choose to locate here. That's what we're here to do. So my fellow citizens, the future is on the line. We would rather not have to make the choices that are in front of us, but that's what we got elected to do. Indecision will not move this city forward. Our city is strong. It's getting stronger, but we remain in danger of being crushed under the weight of our own success if we continue to leave this issue unresolved. So, folks, I love this city. It is a great city, one that remains full of infinite possibilities. We are all in this together. And I'll end today like I started out just 4 years ago. This city is one Charlotte, and it has one future. Thank you.